Let's return to a question I asked a ways back. What is winning? Earlier, I asked whether winning always happens to people in the context of some game. If true, this would be an interesting generalization that would let us apply the philosophy of games to understanding winning. What seems to be the case is that winning always occurs in the context of some game or game-like activity. Game or game-like activity, as we have seen, is a very broad category, taking in things as disparate as soccer, capitalism, and life. For that reason, it's not a very strong claim to say that winning always occurs in the context of some game or game-like activity. We'll assume this generalization going forward. What is winning? Winning is some kind of condition which a player of a game or a participant of a game-like activity can obtain or be in. Typically, it's a condition defined by the rules of the game or activity. In typical cases, the conditions for winning are defined by the explicit rules of the game, and there is rarely question about whether and when somebody has won the game. However, these generalizations belie some complexities. Consider again winning at life. Whether somebody is winning at life can only be said relative to some frame of evaluation. For example, consider a person who amassed great wealth through ethically dubious yet legal means. From a straightforwardly capitalist point of view, one might say they were winning at life, because they are amassing wealth in the free market. From a Christian point of view, one might say they were not winning at life. This Christian judgment can be based on the belief that life is a game, where the object is to seek the way of Christ, which the wealthy person in our example is not doing. These two frames of evaluation, capitalism and Christianity, provide two very different perspectives on whether the person of the example is winning at life. Consider, as a further example, somebody who lived an impoverished life in a rural region of the world where they farmed, gained religious education, gained training as a warrior, and died young in combat. From some frames of evaluation, one could say this person had an underprivileged and ultimately oppressed life, where their future as an individual was subjugated to the nonsensical needs of a national war machine. From some other frames of evaluation, one could say that this person led a virtuous and spiritual life, which culminated in the honor of dying in a fight for that which is sacred. Again, each of these narratives provides very different conclusions as to whether this person is winning at life. For any life you can describe, you can imagine multiple frames of evaluation which provide different conclusions about whether the liver of that life was winning. This is to say that facts alone are not sufficient to determine a judgment of winning at life or not winning at life. One also needs some additional ingredient, what I am generically calling a frame of evaluation. Winning at life, in this respect, is unlike winning at most games, in that fair observers will frequently disagree about whether somebody is winning at life, whereas for most games, fair observers will almost always agree about who the winner of the game is and whether there is a winner. This disanalogy is an interesting conceptual disconnect that seems worth working out to see what can be learned. The disanalogy reminds us of a question I asked a ways back and still haven't answered. Is human life a game? So I've said it's a game-like activity, but is it a game? Life is like a game in some ways. In life one must follow rules. In life there is winning and losing. Life is unlike typical games in that there is no privileged official frame of evaluation for judging winning and losing at life. Life is a game can be thought of as a terminological rule. It says, we should be willing to call life a game. I don't wish to assert or deny this prescriptive rule. I leave it up to the reader whether or not to call life a game. Let's now dig further into the concept of frames of evaluation. The most practical application of frames of evaluation is the case where one adopts a certain frame of evaluation as a frame of evaluation one routinely and habitually applies to one's own life. This we call a value system, and then one proceeds to win at life according to the standards of that frame of evaluation. Almost everybody does this to some extent. People apply many different frames of evaluation to many different parts of their lives as their lives go on. These frames of evaluation generally evolve over time. Conflicts often exist where different frames of evaluation, applied simultaneously or at different times, yield conflicting conclusions. This can lead to regret about past decisions, a sense of turmoil and inner conflict in one's present, etc. If one wants to do something resembling winning at life, then it's useful to unify multiple conflicting frames of evaluation that one applies to one's life into a single frame of evaluation, which can and should evolve over time. The reason this is useful is that without a unified frame of evaluation to judge success and therefore guide decision-making, one's decisions won't move one's life in a consistent direction, and rather than reaping the rewards that come from pursuing a well-strategized life, one may instead drift about without ever finding lasting success. This does not argue against drifting about for a time in life. This can be helpful for learning, self-discovery, and so forth. It just argues that if one's interested in something resembling winning at life, then one should be interested in the pursuit of coherence in, and the working out of contradictions between, the frames of evaluation that one applies to one's life and one's choices, and in the eventual development of a philosophy and direction in life, if one lacks those things in good measure. We have analyzed the concept of winning at life at some length. Let's now turn back to the general concept of winning. To understand winning better, it would be interesting to have a theory of winning, which might explain some of the confusing observations I've made, such as that there are so many different incompatible frames of evaluation with which to judge winning and losing at life. My theory of winning is as follows. To win is to achieve a purpose one has in a game or game-like activity. Typically, when one is explicitly declared the winner of a game, this means that one has won according to the rules of the game, or in other words, that one has achieved the explicit purpose stated in the rules of the game. When one achieves an explicit purpose one has in playing a game, we'll call this explicit winning. An example of explicit winning at life is the case where somebody publicly explicitly declares their purpose or purposes in life, and goes on to achieve said purposes. Life, of course, has no official rules and no official conditions for winning, but nonetheless, it seems fair to refer to achieving one's purposes in life as winning at life, and if those purposes are explicitly declared, then it is explicit winning. When one achieves an implicit purpose one has in playing a game, this typically carries a feeling of victory, but if the purpose is implicit, then the celebration will typically also be implicit, meaning in this case internal. We'll call achieving an implicit purpose in a game implicit winning. In most cases, when we talk about winning, we're talking about explicit winning. However, it certainly seems that success in life is not predicated on others' awareness of one's intentions, so that it seems unreasonable to discount implicit winning as a form of winning. We can think of many examples of implicit winning. One is playing chess with a potential romantic interest and accomplishing the implicit purpose of having meaningful and pleasant social interaction with them, which increases the probability of future romantic success with them, perhaps in addition to the explicit purpose of winning the game of chess. Another example of implicit winning is taking care of some financial chores and accomplishing the implicit purpose of increasing one's sense of financial confidence, in addition to the explicit purpose of refinancing one's debt or whatever it was. Another example of implicit winning is finishing a job at work and doing it well, accomplishing the implicit purpose of giving one's life purpose and giving oneself a reason for self-pride in a job well done, as well as the explicit purpose of fulfilling one's work obligations.